All right, hello. Welcome, everybody. Before I call this meeting to order, I wanted to talk a little bit about some disorder that we are experiencing in our world, especially in this country. And I wanted to reflect a little bit upon my service here on the council. I had been sworn in December of 2012, and 3 days later, Sandy Hook Elementary School involved the murder of school children, 6 years old, and not long after we held a candlelight vigil out here in the foyer, and my candle was held in honor of Benjamin Wheeler, who was 6 years old and shot down, gunned down. And I remember the experience being optimistic that this would be the type of event that might cause this country to take some action to address the proliferation of guns and the massacres that seem to occur all too often. And our flags are currently at half-mast because we not only have not taken action to address the issue, it's gotten far worse. So, as we go about our regular business here in the city, it is my fervent hope that the people that are serving us at the federal level and state level take action, because it's far more difficult for us here at the city to take action that would have the effect that we need, which is to eliminate or significantly reduce the number of massacres that take place in our country. Our city is not immune. We just recently had some arrests. Deputies confiscated a significant cache of weapons here in Encinitas, and fortunately they weren't used, but we have our law enforcement officers here, and to me the level of violence that we see in our country is unacceptable. I personally have served 10 years in a well-regulated militia where in order to get a weapon I had to go to the armory and I had to draw the weapon. And so these arguments that these caches of weapons, these collections of guns that people can have in their own homes is acceptable under the Second Amendment is just a stretch for me. So I'm going to call this meeting to order, but I do so with a heavy heart. 3 massacres in a very short period of time here in this state is just not acceptable, and I hope we can all work together to try and address that particular issue. So with that, I would like to call to order this regular City Council meeting of January 15, 2023. And would the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Blackwell? Here. Councilmember Ehlers?
Here.
Councilmember Hinsey?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Lyons?
Here.
And Mayor Kranz.
Here.
Record will show that all members of the City Council are present this evening.
Okay, thank you. And if you'd please join me, rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, there are no special presentations or oh, wait a minute.
Yes.
We do have a special presentation and proclamation, and it's going to be the administration of the oath of office to our new colleague, Allison Blackwell.
And before I swear her in, I just wanted to let the public know that Councilmember Blackwell was officially sworn in on Monday, the 23rd, and tonight is a ceremonial swearing in.
Okay, thank you.
Allison Blackwell,
Do
solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I will take this obligation freely
that I will take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I'm about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and congratulations, Allison. Look forward to getting a lot done here. With that, we'll move on to item number 5, which is oral communications.
Yes, we do have 8. I will call you up 3 at a time, and just a reminder that you do have 3 minutes. The first 3 speakers, Sandra Anderson, Tori Julipur, is it Tori or Tony? Tony Julipur, and then Fred Gellin.
Can you put the slides up? Can you go to the next one? Thank you. Okay. My name is Sandra Anderson, and I'm a resident of Villa Palacio, located in District 1 between El Camino Real, Villa Cantabria, and off of Villa Molina. Can you show the next slide, please? For the past 34 years, these 4 residential streets shown in this picture, 2 are cul-de-sacs and 1 loops around, and they all 4 come out onto Villa Molina. For the past 34 years, these 4 residential streets, Villa Molina, Villa Palacio, Villa Saracen, and Villa Tavera, have had no parking problems whatsoever. In April of 2021, parking problems began. Next slide. None of these cars in this photo belong to any of the residents on my street. We have met already with 2 council members to explain our problems. For the benefit of the other 3, I'll give you a brief history. We began experiencing major parking issues almost 2 years ago. In November 2021, we presented to the MTS Commission and were approved to have permit parking in our neighborhood. We were told by city staff our issue would be on the city council agenda by February 2022. In March 2022, we had still not been placed on the city council agenda, so we presented in oral communications. Once again, we were told by staff our agenda item would move forward. Next slide, please. In August 2022, we are notified through email by city staff that we would not be on the city council agenda. Staff has been blocking us from advancing to the agenda based on their interpretations of legal terms, interpretations that are inconsistent with previously approved parking permits elsewhere in the city. The legal terms in question are quality of life, resident, commuter, and commercial vehicle. We call the sheriff department regularly to report illegal activities and ask for cars to be towed out of our neighborhood. We have communicated more than 30 times with city officials, yet our problems have not been solved and they are getting worse. They cause public health and safety issues and affect our quality of life. We have requested meetings with all council members to fully explain the situation, but have not yet had responses to those requests. Our goal is to get permit parking in our neighborhood, just as other Encinitas neighborhoods have been approved by previous councils. We're only asking for what other neighborhoods already have. Next, you will see a small sampling of the 160 photos we have collected over the past 2 years and hear neighbors' personal experiences and stories. Note that all of these photos are from the 4 residential streets shown in the map earlier. Also, some of these photos are quite graphic, but necessary to prove to you that our quality of life, without question, is being affected.
Hello, city members. My name is Tony Julipur. My wife, my 2 daughters. We live in this lovely neighborhood. We moved here almost 5 years ago. It was back in 2016. But for the past 2 years, we feel kind of very unsafe due to illegal activities that are happening in our neighborhood. Please go ahead and spend like 3 or 4 seconds on each slide until we get to this next section. So basically, you can see the trash, beer cans, broken glasses, pretty much used by non-residents on daily basis, mainly late at nights. They basically throw them on the sidewalks, on the streets, in the common green areas, in the drains. Neighbors, the residents constantly have to clean up. Actually, I walk my dogs almost every night, and it's kind of dark at night. I almost walk on a broken glass. Luckily, I wasn't hurt, and neither was my dog. So I keep going until we get to the next section. So as you can see, they're all over the place, all over. Sidewalks, streets, common areas. Okay, so the next section, we're going to be showing you some. The next photos are really graphic. So this is the reality we live in. You know, we live in a neighborhood with small kids. So imagine kids are basically see this kind of stuff and try to pick them up. Please go ahead. Syringes. I mean, this has been. I've at least seen quite a few of them. So imagine the kids see this kind of stuff. Vomiting. Friday night, Saturday night, it's like a common parking place. Our streets is a party town for some of these non-residents to get drunk and make the mess. So basically, the punctured leakage gas container, which required a fire department, a call to a fire department to come by, and actually the gas fumes could be smelled a few blocks away. Condoms, wipes, what can we say? Imagine your children, small children, see this kind of stuff, and out of curiosity, they touch them. They will be at high risk. And keep going. So basically, this is the video. They're actually urinating. This was witnessed by me. I took the picture. There was another guy after this person, but I was kind of afraid that they might see me, and they might consider retributions. This is the stuff that we live, unfortunately, in our neighborhood. I have 2 daughters. Both daughters park their cars on the street sometimes, but coming at home at 8 o'clock at night, they actually called me and their mom, please escort us back inside because there are a few strangers sitting in the cars watching her. Both of them have been followed a few times. One of my daughter's car has been vandalized once, hit and run another time. Per sheriff, most likely happened by a non-resident who's been drinking. Both bedrooms of my daughters are facing the streets because of people sitting and sleeping in their cars almost every night. My daughters are afraid to leave the door open, to leave the window open. So we will appreciate your support on this. Thank you very much.
Next speaker is Fred Gillen, followed by Scott Pogue, and then Bonnie Bobzian.
Okay, I'm Fred Gillen, and I live on Tony Street. I've been here 4 years, and we want to go over some slides with traffic violations, car repairs, and commercial vehicles. So this is just one example of a car parked right next to the fire hydrant. Next. This is a very common thing to see. They actually put cones up for this trailer. And we have a series of slides like that. Next. Another trailer. Next. This one was actually hitched and was there for days. When the police came, it was a stolen vehicle. Next. That's one of many cars that when it sits more than 3 days, they get tagged. We call the sheriff. And this happens on a regular basis every week. Next. Car repairs on our streets. Next. Right across the street, working on their cars freely. Next. Climbing under the car, God forbid something should happen, somebody could get hurt. Next. Different fluids messing up the street. This person got in an accident and he's trying to repair the car. Next. He was actually spray painting the car right across the street from our house in the last couple weeks. And unfortunately, the time the sheriff comes, they were gone. But you can imagine the mess, no regard for our neighborhood at all. as far as the mess and the debris that they leave behind them. Next, commercial vehicles. Next. We see this, this is an everyday occurrence, the commercial vehicles, which are not supposed to be allowed on the street. Next, another commercial vehicle, another one with a hitch. Next, carpooling and park and ride. Next. This is right at the corner of Via Palacio and Via Molina, and you can see right where people are pulling into the street what's going on there, how dangerous that is. Next. Another example of the same thing. Next. Again, people pulling up, carpooling, and this is what goes on. Next. More. Next. And this is a little bit what, at the end of the day, how the street fills up. Next, or that might be the last one. And we got 2 seconds left. Okay, thank you for your time.
Next is Scott Pogue, followed by Bonnie Bobzian, and then Christine Schindler.
Good evening. So my name is Scott Pogue. I live at 225 Via Palacio. There's an old saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words, but sometimes the pictures don't give the whole story. You see, if you drove down our street during the day, you wouldn't see all those cars there. In fact, some days there's no cars there during the day. Sometimes there's 3 or 4 cars. But what happens is our quiet little street of only 8 homes gets transformed into a parking lot of 20+ cars every single night. I'm guessing you've never lived in a parking lot like we do. So let me tell you a story to briefly illustrate what it's like. My daughter was in between apartments, so she lived with us for 3 months recently. And she teases her 3 older brothers and says, when mom and dad are gone, I'm gonna get the house, I'm gonna get the house. And, but when she found out that I was coming to speak tonight, she said, Dad, tell them I don't want your house anymore. You see, we all leave our windows open 7 to 8 months out of the year. Our bedrooms are all upstairs where it's warm, and we don't have air conditioning. We haven't had it for the almost 9 years we've lived there. Then the cars with their noisy mufflers and transmissions and squeaky fan belts, windows down, radios blaring, car doors and trunks slamming, and people talking and laughing start about 8 o'clock at night, and it goes all night long until about midnight. And in the summer, they sit in their cars and sometimes lay on the hoods with the car windows down and the radios going. And in the morning, you guessed it, it starts all over again at 5:45 a.m. And then there's those occasional but not infrequent car alarms that go off in the middle of the night, and no one's there to turn them off because no one lives on our street that has those cars parked there. So living in a parking lot isn't a lot of fun with all the trash that you've seen and all the vehicles, and it's affecting the quality of our lives. But I know that's important to you all because I actually read about it in the paper not long ago. And I just happen to have a copy of the article here. There was a ribbon-cutting ceremony for Olivenhain's newest trail that was reported in the paper. It states, on Tuesday, Encinitas Mayor Catherine Blakespear snipped the ribbon on the trail alongside City Council members Tony Krantz and Joy Lyons. The paper stated, the project is another example of our commitment to improving our residents' quality of life. So, after what you've seen and heard tonight, would you like to live in our parking lot?
I am Bonnie Bobzine, a resident of Via Palacio. If the incidents we have shown you occurred in your neighborhood, wouldn't your quality of life be diminished? Would you want any child exposed to the things you have seen in these photos? Why can't the city do something to resolve this? We have done in-depth analysis of our municipal codes concerning permit parking dating back to 1998. We know the opinions of the city council members and city staff as they granted permit parking on the 3 occasions. We have researched Attorney General Opinion 14-304. We researched 20 other California cities' permit programs and know how they function. In previous discussions with city staff and city officials, we have learned there are points of contention over definitions of terms in the municipal code for permit parking. There is a nearby apartment complex to our 4 streets, and Attorney General Opinion 14-304 is raising questions. However, citizens are not allowed to interact with the city attorney, and we cannot directly share our proposed solutions to this matter. Our current municipal code concerning permit parking was approved by City Council in 1998. The resolution for the first neighborhood granted permit parking stated the following regarding the purpose of this new code, as permit parking would enhance or protect the quality of life in the area threatened by noise, traffic hazards, environmental pollution, or devaluation of real property resulting from long-term non-resident parking, and whereas no alternative solution is feasible or practical. Social issues are relevant when granting permit parking. This exact same definition was quoted again when the Seacrest Way neighborhood was granted permit parking and resolutions approved in 2015 and 2016. The current engineering department states it differently. For them, quality of life means strictly availability of parking spaces. There is also controversy over the term resident. Permit parking programs require a person to live on the street within the boundaries of the zone designated by the city council. Others believe you can live 1 to 3 blocks outside the permit zone boundary and still qualify for a parking permit. Obviously, a 3-minute presentation cannot encompass all the points being raised by city staff and city attorney. Our request to meet with each of you is so we can present an accurate account of our position and why we feel our 4 streets qualify for permit parking. This folder here just contains the information we've identified evaluating traffic codes and the Attorney General opinion. I am not an attorney, but this is my research on this one topic only, and it illustrates how we need personal time with each of you to discuss the matter. Thank you.
Next speaker is Christine Schindler, followed by Brian Blair, and then Peggy Walker.
Hi there, Christine Schindler, East Encinitas resident. First off, I just wanted to welcome our newest council member, Allison, and my new council member, Bruce. And I look forward to Tony as our mayor and things to come. I wanted to acknowledge 3 things. First being Cyclovia Encinitas that happened Sunday, January 8th. It was another wonderful, successful open street event, and I just wanted to appreciate the city for hosting the event and for all of the council members and the mayor for being there. And I wanted to acknowledge staffer Nick Buck, who is the main organizer for the event. He's done it 3 times now in person and does a wonderful job. I wanted to acknowledge Ross Ryder and his tenaciousness for pursuing a pedestrian improvement in Cardiff. So he's a Cardiff resident and a member of the Park and Rec Commission. And I saw work going on out there today, and it's at the intersection of San Alejo and Manchester, and it looks like it'll be a very good pedestrian improvement. I do hope that we can also get sharrows on the roadway in that area to make it a bit more safe and bring some visibility to the fact that people ride bicycles along that roadway. And then the third thing I wanted to acknowledge, I go to the Encinitas Union School District Green Team meetings, and I've had a number of Green Team members and parents for Paul Ecke talk about how transformative the El Portal undercrossing has been for students and parents going to Paul Ecke Elementary, but I would think also for the greater community. So I just wanted to say kudos for the fact of that project finishing up, and we look forward to other things that can happen in Leucadia to help with those really important east-west crossings, connections, and safe routes to school progress. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Christine, and I want to thank you for your efforts with Cyclavia. It was a very successful event. Staff and all of the group of volunteers very much appreciated the effort that went into it. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm here tonight with the hope that making Quail Gardens Drive slow and safe stays a priority for the city. Last year, the City Council approved a traffic calming study, and I don't yet know how to track, navigate, or give input into this study or how to expedite a plan. But while I'm learning more about the process, I wanted to remind the City Council of the problems with Quail Gardens Drive in the hopes that we see a solution in motion this year. The problem is really between Leucadia and Encinitas Boulevard. It's unsafe. It has a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit, which is already too fast for a very narrow road with bike lanes, a school, a botanic garden, and hundreds of homes. But almost no one goes the speed limit. I have two videos that illustrate some of the related concerns. This first one just shows something that I see every day, which is kids and families that don't want to be in the bike lanes because it's a superhighway. And so you just see people on this little side. It's not even really a sidewalk, but people are riding on it because it's very clear that the bike lanes are not safe. Another thing I see is a follow-up video here, and it shows that there's people just cross wherever. Okay, so look how close those people were to that car. There's one crosswalk. It doesn't even have those cool flashing lights, and a 1.3-mile stretch. And so people just cross wherever, and it makes me crazy nervous because when people are going 40, 50, 60 miles an hour, the city has the data. It's scary to see people just crossing wherever they can. And that's what they do when they want to get from one side to the other. So, my main concern is that there's been a traffic calming study approved, and I don't know what that entails, but what I've learned is that there are a lot of other great solutions around Encinitas. And one of them is speed bumps. I have an image here of some of the speed bumps I've seen. We have speed bumps of various sizes, and they're effective. Whether anybody likes them or not is irrelevant. I drive over them all the time in different parts of Leucadia, Cardiff, even in Livenhain, and they work. They're inexpensive, and so I hope that as the City Council considers what traffic and whatever the study comes up with, that we consider a comprehensive plan for this stretch that takes into account this 250-unit Fox Point and Sunshine Gardens, 140 units, and all the kids that are going to be added to this area on bikes, and the people, and there's going to be this whatever this Baldwin project ends up being, maybe the largest project ever in Encinitas. Let's do a comprehensive plan now that makes this feel as safe as some of these charming little neighborhoods I drive through in Cardiff, where it's like stop sign, stop sign, stop sign, speed bump, where you don't have to worry. Because if you are on this road, you would worry. And I encourage you to ride a bike on it so you can experience it yourself. It'll make you a believer. And so my other comments were, mini roundabouts. There's a mini roundabout. It's like $8,000 to $12,000. We've got a few of them. We should consider that as well. Apparently, it's a very inexpensive solution to consider. And I hope this wonderful neighborhood is addressed because that was an effective communication from them. Thanks.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Peggy Walker. Driving over here tonight and catching that spectacular sunset, I am reminded what gifts clean air and quality environment are. And in line with that, I came tonight as a member of San Diego County Tobacco Coalition to say that tobacco issues related to health, the environment, and tobacco waste are priority topics in many cities in our county this year, including San Diego. And I'm especially appreciative that our Encinitas Environment Committee's thoughtful proposal to improve Encinitas' environment and quality of life came about with a recommended public smoking ban. Several San Diego County cities already limit smoking and vaping. And I especially appreciate the recognition in my home territory that tobacco products, particularly cigarette butts, are significant pollutants of the environment and the ocean. As all public health organizations recognize, cigarette, tobacco, and other related waste present secondhand smoke and vapor health risks as well. The oldest and largest organization devoted to clean air is American for Non-Smokers' Rights, ANR. ANR states that any kind of smoke is still smoke, whether secondhand tobacco or marijuana smoke or vapor from vapes and e-cigs, which contain hazardous fine particulates and toxic chemicals. The elimination of secondhand smoke and vapor from public spaces will immeasurably improve quality of life, improve health, and save public and medical resources. I just wanted to say that we're on track with other cities, and that certainly the time has come to improve the air quality of our public air and public spaces, and to rid cigarette butts and other tobacco and vape-related trash and toxic waste from our streets and ocean. Thank you.
That does conclude oral communications.
Thank you. And for the folks here regarding the permit parking program, we will have an agenda item on February 15th to discuss permit parking. And so that'll kind of get us up to date with the state of the law as regards that particular issue. So I expect to see you that night as well. Next up is a report out of closed session.
Thank you, Mayor Kranz. At approximately 5 p.m., the City Council met in closed session on the 2 items on the agenda. While in closed session, the City Council took no reportable action, so there's no report from closed session tonight.
Thank you. And City Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes to the posted agenda. I will note, however, that item 10A, this was a public hearing, has been continued to the February 8th, 2023 City Council meeting, which begins at 6:00 p.m. It only appeared on this agenda because it had been legally noticed. And then moving to the consent calendar, items 8F and 8G have been pulled by members of the public.
Okay, and I will mention that item 10A, if you're here to speak to that, we will open the public hearing at that time for the purpose of you speaking if you feel the need to do that, but there will be no action on that item tonight. Okay, so that leaves the consent calendar, and you said
Item 8F and 8G.
F and G.
Mayor, I'll move for approval of the remaining items on our consent calendar.
I'll second that.
Okay, so that's 8A through 8E and includes 8H and 8I.
Correct.
And I would also point out that 8I, which is the emergency declaration for the stone step staircase beach access, that work is, moving forward, and it's hopefully going to be completed soon, but it is being treated as an emergency that beach access here in Encinitas deserves. So I need to go over to this screen here and push that button right there.
Motion does carry unanimously. That takes us to item 8F.
Item 8F, and
Would you like a staff report?
Staff report? Do we want to hear
We have
a
2
staff
speakers.
report?
Yes, please.
Okay. How many public speakers do we have?
We have 2, and then 2 that are registering support but do not wish to speak.
Okay.
All right, thank you. I'm Roy Sapao, I'm Director of Development Services. I will introduce the item tonight. In 2021, the City Council developed a ad hoc subcommittee to spearhead the effort to develop a native plant ordinance and program. The City Council designated then Council Member Lyons and Council Member Hinsey on the subcommittee. Since then, Council Member Hinsey stepped down and Council Ehlers stepped in and filled in for as part of the subcommittee. So tonight, what's before you tonight is the subcommittee's recommendations on their findings based on the meetings that they've had throughout the year or since 2021 on this effort. So I'll turn it over to Deputy Mayor Lyons for their recommendation.
Thank you, Roy. We we were interested in pulling this or having this as an item to consider individually, both internally and I think externally too, because there's a lot of really good energy behind the native plant ordinance and this policy development. So I want to just go through a little bit of what the background is and what we've done to date. And my subcommittee member, Councilmember Ehlers, may want to also then contribute some of his thoughts. And if that's all right, then we'll go to the public speakers after that. Is that the right process?
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Keeping it as brief as possible.
All right. So we have a bit of a PowerPoint that Roy has up there. We did have 3 public meetings after this was approved as a council member agenda proposed item. We had 3 public meetings, and this is a photograph from one of them. And that was last fall. Those meetings were well attended. They were held by the combined subcommittee, which was the Environmental Committee, the Planning Commission, and the Urban Forest Advisory Committee. And we got a lot of good input. The next slide, please. What is being proposed is a combination of a broad amount of input. The recommendations that we're going to consider tonight are moving forward with developing our policy for native plants, which includes native plant zones, native plant species lists. Next slide, please. Policy recommendations are for both public lands and private lands, and there's a lot of detail in that there would be some incentives for some private land, and there would also be some outreach and educational programs associated with these recommendations. We also are considering the commercial availability of native plants, rainwater harvesting, education outreach, objective permitting, policies for removal of natives, and also the Bee City USA, which we are moving forward as being a member of the Bee City USA. Next slide, please. And so this is just the recommendation that's before us today. We're continuing to get input and to take input from the public, and there will be an ongoing public process as we move forward to develop the details of new and future policy for the use of native plants throughout our community. That's my presentation.
And then I just had a couple of comments. I think Councilmember Lyons hit it at the end there. This is not the ordinance. I think several comments we got thought this was the ordinance. This is just directing staff to formulate an ordinance, so there's still the public input on the ordinance. The second item that I think was a point of confusion that I'd like to correct is that it certainly applies to public-owned lands. It applies to new developments of subdivisions and large projects. It does not edict or require native plant usage in single-family homes on your existing houses. So I think there were some people that wrote into us and worried about that. And so, but we'll go through the process. This will all be discussed in public, and the idea is to encourage the use. And I like the way we have it with the 2 components, the education and facilitation, if you will, and then the actual ordinance changes that will affect probably the city more than anybody. So, thank you.
So the carrot and stick approach, yes, that's what it sounds like to me. And Roy, when we develop ordinances, and especially one like this, it would have public input at several points, including a planning commission hearing, is that?
That is correct. It's subject to our citizen participation program. So there will be several outreach workshops with the community. We can look at doing workshops and meetings with other outside agencies that could be affected or have an interest in this issue. So there would be plenty of opportunities for the public and all the stakeholders to participate.
And so we would probably set up a constant contact email distribution to notice people that were interested in this issue so that they could sign up for any of these events and such. And
Yes.
I hope we can do that anyways. Yep. And so, Kathy, public speakers, please.
Okay. Our 2 speakers are Don Rideout and then Frank Lando. And then Kendra Sod and Ko Kim have registered support but do not wish to speak.
Good evening, I'm Don Rideout. I live at 145 Basil Street in Leucadia, and I'm just here to say how delighted I am that you're doing this. It's a fantastic program. I have lived in Encinitas for 33 years, and for most of that time, I've been hoping that something like this would come about, but I didn't know if it would happen in my lifetime. It's happening now due to your leadership, and I thank you very much for that.
Oh, goody, I get to give this slightly longer talk. Thanks, Don. Good evening, council members, Mayor Kranz. My name is Frank Landis. I'm actually a San Diego resident. I'm the conservation chair and a board member for the San Diego chapter of the California Native Plant Society. And I'm also the co-chair of the San Diego County Biodiversity Working Group. In the latter role, I have been working for over a year with the county to help them develop their native landscape program. Basically, I'm here for three reasons. One is to support your interest in initiating a native plant ordinance. Second is to tell you that CNPS is quite willing and able to support this effort. CNPS is a binational NGO. We've supported similar efforts in Southern California for decades, and we would like to share the resources we have. There are already many things that can be adapted, and so that they don't really need to be reinvented. We're quite aware how much this can cost if you started off. In fact, my mom wrote one of the books, so we'd rather share it and then let you adapt what you need than watch you reinvent something that's already been done several times. Third reason is to answer the question, why native plants? We're finding that we need plants that are drought tolerant, fire resistant, food for pollinators, food for birds and other wildlife, and aesthetically appealing. Now, it's possible to get plants from all over the world to fulfill some of these roles, but natives do all of them, which is especially good when there's limited landscaping space. We simply want to give more people the option for growing them. I quite agree with Councilmember Ehlers that nobody's interested in imposing landscaping choices. This is just improving options and improving the commercial availability. So thank you for taking my testimony.
Thank you for speaking, both.
I would like to move approval of the recommended action and the adoption of the resolution 2023-03.
I'll second unless Kelly wants to. There you go. Go ahead. Go. I'll let you know. Oh, okay. Either way. We'll both second. No, you probably can't do that, so I'll second.
Yes, and I would point out that we have, by consent today, become Bee City USA, so very excited about that. It took a while to get our ordinance changed to allow for beekeeping in Encinitas, and so this is a natural step, and the next one would be this particular ordinance, so I look forward to the vote.
I want to thank our speakers for coming and supporting this today.
Motion carries unanimously. That now takes us to item 8G.
Okay, 8G, and that is the overlay program, and
We have
Jill
four.
and her team are going to start that. We have 4 public speakers. Do we have a prepared staff report for this?
Good evening, Mayor Kranz, council, and also members of the public. Item 8G before you this evening pertains to the city's annual resurfacing and repaving program. The city allocates funding each year to perform both maintenance and also rehabilitation on its streets throughout the city. The city maintains approximately 168 miles of roadway. So this is a much important project in terms of maintenance for the city. So tonight's recommendation is to first approve the street list for the project, authorize advertisement of the project, approve striping plans on Manchester Avenue, South El Camino Real, South Coast Highway 101, South Rancho Santa Fe Road, and also South Vulcan Avenue, In addition, adopt City Council Resolution number 2023-02 pertaining to the approval of these striping plans. Staff is available for any questions.
Okay, are there any preliminary questions?
I'll hold off.
So we hear from the public speakers?
We do have 4. Bill Carley, Michael Von Neumann, Judy Burlfine, and then Christine Schindler.
Hi, I'm Bill Carley. Basically unprepared with any slides. The slides and photos and homework done by the previous speakers on the previous subjects was pretty good. But I am armed with a little bit of common sense. And that's this. I'm not even sure if our neighborhood, which is, I live on 265 Rodney. I'm sorry if I didn't give you that. But we're in either Old Encinitas or Encinitas 2. Nextdoor.com calls us Encinitas 2. Some people call us Old Encinitas, right behind Trader Joe's. And we underwent a big SDG&E retrofit this fall, which was necessary, very disruptive to the neighborhood, where they had to retrofit pipes, dig into the streets, go into each house individually, and do a lot of repair work on our individual properties and hopefully the streets. And so within the neighborhood, everybody seemed to be tolerant about all of that with the understanding that the end project would be really nice, similar to what the parking lot looks like out here. Perfect, looks great. So what happened was once we got to the repaving project, they came out and tore up the streets. It was very well orchestrated by the contractor that did it, with a minimal amount of invasion, and everybody was pretty excited about the whole thing. And but they seem to be missing like half the street in several of the areas. Now, in front of my home, it's perfect. They did the whole thing, but I'd say probably half the neighborhood has half the streets paved. And so within the neighborhood, a lot of people asked what's going on. I went out, spoke to the contractors, and they said, yeah, this is pretty much what we're going to do. This is what SDG&E pays for. And it's like, what do you mean? They said, well, we'd rather do the whole thing and make it look right, but that's all they're paying for. So it appeared to be like a situation where they're responsible to repair what they tore up and not anything more. So the neighborhood got together, and a lot of people asked, what are we going to do about this? Who's going to pay for it? There were a lot of rumors going around. Councilman Eilers came out and met with us, with our neighborhood. And all I would leave you with is, I'm not sure if we figure into this slurry project, but anyone who takes a look at it can see just by common sense that it's a half-finished project. One last thing, my 8-year-old granddaughter even said, how come they didn't finish the job? So anybody that takes a look at it, it should be readily apparent what needs to be done. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Michael Von Neumann. I live in New Encinitas, and I'm a member of Encinitas Bike Walk, an advocacy group promoting safe cycling and safe pedestrian access. I'm also a member and the current chair of the city's Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission. I'm speaking on this item, specifically the restriping plans on Manchester Avenue and South El Camino Real. Before I get into those, I do want to just acknowledge that Encinitas is becoming a safer place to bike and walk every year, and I am grateful for that, since I do both. I ask that the council remove the item restriping Manchester Avenue and South El Camino Real and consider this later on. A main reason for this is that the restriping plans have not been presented to the Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission, which should have the opportunity to review and add input to the City Council. As stated on the city website, the Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission shall have advisory responsibility in regards to mobility and traffic safety issues. Restriping major streets can positively and or negatively affect mobility and traffic safety. The Manchester Avenue South El Camino corridor has been on the city's individual citizens, advocacy groups. It's been on the radar for quite a while. Encinitas Bike Walk had a meeting with council members regarding this and some suggestions about what to do when restriping came up. Residents have come and spoke at city council meetings. The city has received letters supporting better bike and pedestrian access on this corridor. They've received letters from Miracosta student government, and also I understand the synagogue that is near there. With this background, I find it a little unsettling that these restriping plans are being presented for approval on the consent agenda. The plans should have been developed with input from the Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission, advocacy groups, and private citizens. There are some good changes in the striping plans. However, there are still sections of roadway that are 11 feet travel lanes, 11 feet wide travel lanes. There are 18.5-foot right turn lanes. There's a 20-foot right turn lane in the plans. There's even a 5-foot non-buffered bike lane right next to a 55-mile-an-hour area of the road. It's not buffered or anything. There's no bike lane there now, so a 5-foot bike is better than nothing. But I really do think the plan should have better study and input from the public. Before I'm going to take a minute, I want to thank Kathy Hollywood. I've come and spoken before meetings before. I've had interactions with Kathy. I've always found her to be very professional. I don't know how she herds you cats around, but I just want to thank her, and I think she does a great job.
Thank you. Couldn't agree more.
Hello, I'm Judy Burlfine, and I want to welcome Allison and Bruce. Thank you. And I really mostly want to piggyback off of what Michael just said related to Manchester. And I'm sure you've all driven there, but I'd like to give you and those who are listening a visual of the street. I rode my bike to the synagogue 2 days ago, and it was like a freeway with driveways. We have 3 schools, 4 places of worship, 3 senior living facilities, and 1 apartment complex. It's a nightmare. I'm sure you all know this. But this is a great opportunity to make it better. The San Diego County Bike Coalition sent all of you a letter with some fabulous recommendations, so I hope you'll study that closely. I support all of the recommendations that Michael's made. The thing that's amazing about Manchester, which isn't true about Vulcan or San Elijo or Melba, is there's a ton of space. So we actually can maybe make everyone happy with all that space there. We're not constrained. So let's look at it more closely and make it safer. Thank you.
So Christine Schindler again, East Encinitas. One thing I forgot to mention about Cyclovia is we had brand new pavement from D Street to F. Awesome, right? We all like new pavement. It works for motorists, it works for pedestrians, and for bicyclists. So I appreciate that we do these projects each year and the amount of time that's spent for staff planning, and the fact that we have Transnet dollars SB1 dollars, and then also general fund dollars. So thank you, City Manager Pam and staff, for the work. We are very happy to see that there are going to be changes on Manchester and South El Camino Real. But I think Michael, Judy, and myself, and maybe others, just want to see it to be a bit better. So it's a vast improvement over what exists right now. We have a big opportunity because we've been coming here talking about this corridor for a while because we knew that the NCC build was going to put in a multi-use path and that this was going to become an even more key corridor for complete streets. So it is a main arterial. We realize that cars travel through this corridor to get to I-5. People want to go fast. They don't want congestion. But there is a lot to work with. Like Judy said, it's a very wide corridor. There's a lot of opportunity. So we want to see it move forward. We just want there to be some more consideration of the current plan. So Will Radigan from San Diego County Bike Coalition sent a letter. Not only was he talking about Manchester and South El Camino Real, but he also had things that he wanted to be considered for South Coast Highway between F and K, I think, if that's right, where there's maybe some opportunities to do things different as far as striping goes with this latest pavement project. So let's see, what else did I want to mention? I think that's it. I mean, we're happy that there's wider bike lanes, that there's buffers on the bike lanes. There's a section on South Rancho Santa Fe that has new bike lanes, so really happy to see that. So I want to be positive, but then also encourage more consideration by staff to make it an even better project before the actual striping goes on the roadway. Thanks so much.
That does conclude speakers on this item.
Thank you. Councilmember Hensy.
Thank you. I support what our members of Bike Walk Encinitas are here to ask for tonight, which is to bring back the striping plans, at least for Manchester, for South Coast Highway 101, to have some of those considerations that were listed so accurately throughout their testimony. As they mentioned, we've spent tens of millions of dollars as a region to improve and add bike infrastructure, class 1 bike lanes under the bridge there at the freeway. And when you turn right, it's almost like the city's infrastructure has not met that standard, and I think we can do a lot better this year. I think through striping alone, we can accomplish what they're asking for, which is improved access to Maricosta College, which will have a farmer's market, all the faith organizations that Judy mentioned, our senior citizen community that lives adjacent. And so as a member of NCTD now, there's also some things that we're working on, which includes access to Maricosta College. There's currently no bus stop that's very close by, and so to get people to Maricosta without a car is exceedingly difficult, but I think that we as a city can alleviate at least some of those first and last mile challenges if we can empower folks to ride their bikes, ride their e-bikes from the closest bus stops and get to Maricosta safely. As Judy called it, it does feel like a freeway with driveways, so we should be doing everything we can to bring the speeds down and make it a more comfortable ride for the people who have no choice but to ride there. I hope that what we can do with this next striping is to work towards, as the Bike Coalition recommended, vertical physical separation. So I think this would be a great project for us to fund in the next fiscal year, and I hope that this striping can be in the process of getting us there. So some of the most important things that were mentioned was making that right turn lane smaller so that cars can't take that turn so quickly. They Will referenced Carlsbad as having been able to actually bring down lanes to 10 feet on the arterials, which is something that I think we still have a little bit of concern about doing. But if Carlsbad's done it, then perhaps there's some precedent for us to be able to do that as well. And so the goal would be to make the bike lanes and make the buffers wide enough so that it's an easier project for us to come in with bollards or some type of physical separation here, because I think Bike Walk's been asking for that for a while. And hopefully this is just taking a big chunk out of that effort. Let me look at my notes here and make sure that I covered some of those other things that we're asking for. There was some removal of parking that was requested. I think we should take a look at that because we want to eliminate bike lane door zones in as much as the city as possible. Yes, I think we can bring down the speeds here significantly without impacting travel times to autos, just by lane narrowing.
Goal is to get this bifurcated, removed from this item and/or, whatever we do with the pavement part of this agenda item, right?
Yes, that's my goal. And I just had one point on South Coast Highway 101. There were some great recommendations by the Bike Coalition, but I understand that's probably a different project. But I think one thing that would make this a better striping plan is just by adding an outer edge line to the number 1 lane so that there is lane narrowing in the way that we've implemented in other parts of the city. I think that alone would make it more clear for autos in their lane when they're leaving their lane and also to bring down the speeds there. So yes, that would be my goal.
And so what would be the effect of removing the striping plans from this item? It would delay it, obviously, but
we have a couple options. So one of the reasons why we weren't able to get in front of MTSC is because we didn't have meetings in December or January with MTSC, the Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission, because of the holidays and staff vacations. But we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to go to MTSC at the next meeting and share the plans and get some feedback there. And then when we return to award the project, we can get the design approval from the City Council right before we award the construction contract.
okay. I would support doing that, so whatever we need to do in terms of a motion, you can let me know. Councilmember Ehlers.
I too would support, I'd actually like to see them all. I was kind of surprised it didn't go through that phase, so I'd like to see South Rancho Santa Fe. I think when I got the report, I asked a lot of the same questions you just went through. I read the Bike Coalition letter and was intrigued, and so I think the added for just the striping, but all the striping should go back through the process with the Mobility Commission as suggested by the chair. So I support that. I do want to talk about Encinitas 2 and Rodney, if I could digress or whatever. I want to explain what I learned when I went out there. It's probably about 8 roads or 3 cul-de-sacs, 6 roads, something like that. And when I looked, I had a meeting and discussion with Director Bankston. The PCI for Rodney is 22 out of 100. We're repaving quite a few that I don't think there is one that we're repaving right now that's lower than 22. So this would be, even though it's not on the current plan tonight, it's lower than all the ones we are doing. So I think it's a good candidate. Now, it's a little unique, and I think Bill Carley explained some of it. I'll re-explain just so we're really clear. SDG&E came and repiped the gas pipes, and so that meant they only dug up a half to a third of the road, and they repaved that. But on roads that were loaded on both sides with houses, they did the whole road. So if you go into this neighborhood, it's really been 3/4 repaved, 100%, with 2 or 3 roads only half paved. And I've got a picture, and I don't know if, Warren, I emailed it to you, and Jill, I emailed it to you. Is there any way to pull it up? It shows Rodney. I went out there, and the portion I got out and looked at, there are chunks. And I thought about stopping and bringing one in tonight because they're just loose. They're just, literally, I could have brought them up in hand-sized chunks. And if we can get the picture up, it's worth 1,000 words, right? This is one of those opportunities where, and one of the goals of this program is to increase our bang for our buck. And this is one where we would only have to 1/4 pave and we'd get all that PCI step up to 100 across the entire area. Otherwise, we can wait a year or two, see what other damage occurs to the repaved. It just seems like a good opportunity. So what I would propose for this one is if we can put it in to the current plan, yes. Otherwise, consider it tonight as an alternative or a primary alternative, one of the first ones, and look at, have engineering look at how much would it cost to add it to the program. Because it seems like a high bang for the buck. Using the scorecard that we use here, it's ripe, and it's 3/4 done. Did I miss anything?
So the one bit of frustration is that I'm not sure how much engagement we have with SDG&E, but it certainly seems to me that we should have worked out a deal so that the construction was completed all at one time, whether we had to supplement their budget in order to accomplish that. Because the notion of their pavement guy coming out for half the street just is a little bit odd, especially if the rest of the street is at 22. So, that's disappointing, but I get that it's not inexpensive. And so one of the questions that I would have is for the city manager, we have kicked around the notion of increasing the budget for the pavement of our streets, and I believe that was going to be part of the conversation coming up in our budget discussions in April, May, June timeframe. Is that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That is correct. That would be an impact to the following year's contract that we would go out to bid. As part of those discussions, I believe that the city engineer has put some add alternates into the bid package to see if there's an opportunity to add more. And if you'd like, we can also see in between now and that budget period if there's some shaving of dollars that we might be able to do on other projects. It's always very hard to defund one thing to fund something else, but we're happy to sharpen our pencil and take a look at that if that's the desire of the council.
Well, so the action that we'd be taking tonight is add them to the list in order to get as an additive alternative what the cost to complete this street would be. I do know that there's a segment of Hygeia that is not dissimilar here. It's in very bad shape. It's a very active road. I wouldn't suggest that it needs to be paved from curb to curb, but there are definitely dig outs that could be done that would make a big difference. So, and for areas that are safe routes to school where we have literally hundreds of bicyclists every day going both ways on that particular street. I happen to be one of those bicyclists, but there are many, many more. And so I would love to see that stretch added to the list as well to just get an idea of what that would cost. But so if that works for you all, then we'll have to figure out the motion making here. So.
Mayor Kranz?
So you want to bifurcate first, and then we can work on the other?
Well, I think that we could actually just make it part of the motion to remove the striping plan and then add these two streets to the additive alternatives. And then we're going to approve a budget item later or the contracting of this. And if we need to plus up the budget, we will, I assume, be able to do it at that time. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and I see Deputy Mayor Lyons would like to speak.
Thank you. I was going to suggest exactly what our mayor just said. So given what he just said, to capture how to move this forward by removing the striping plans and adding the two streets that were discussed as add alternates this year. If that's favorable to, I believe a motion's been made, correct? No? Okay. I would like to move that recommendation.
I'll second that.
Can I offer a friendly amendment, which would be to remove them from tonight, but send them back to Mobility Commission? So just so it's clear.
Yes, that's a good friendly amendment. That's
And
acceptable.
I'll offer my second as well.
So I'm just going to repeat because I want to make sure I have it correct. So the motion is to approve the street list for the fiscal year 2022-23 citywide street overlay and slurry seal project CS23A with the addition of Rodney Avenue and Hygeia as add alternatives. And then 2 is authorize the advertisement of the fiscal year 2022-23 citywide street overlay and slurry seal project, CS23A. And then to not approve the plans, but to refer the plans for the restriping to the Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission.
And I would want to clarify that it's not, Rodney goes around kind of a loop, and so it has multiple
Say
names.
a portion of Rodney?
It's Villanitas 2 is one way to say it. It's the continuation of Rodney would be another way to say it.
Okay,
Yeah, it's where it's only been half paved
okay.
out of the entire neighborhood.
And may I just add something in discussion on this, since we have our chief engineer here? With the rains, and we'll likely have more rains, but with rains, a lot of our streets do end up looking like our picture here, a little bit worse now than, say, a few months ago. Can you explain our process for addressing some of these, what have become more meaningful, more urgent repairs? Could you say a few words, nothing too long?
Yeah, yes. If we have, when we get reports of potholes, those are quick fixes. We can get Public Works out there very quickly. They're very responsive. My Encinitas app is the best way to shed some light onto potholes as they arise. And that's a way that we can address any kind of major issues pretty quickly.
And go ahead. Just one follow-up. Does our crew inspect the roads, or do we wait? Are we proactive, or are we only reactive to people reporting issues to us?
So as our crews are out and about, if they identify an issue, then certainly they will address it themselves without having it be reported through the My Encinitas app. But certainly there are more eyes in the community than we have on staff, so it's always a great resource to have the feedback through My Encinitas.
I appreciate that. I get a lot of questions about it. Thanks for the clarification.
So the other thing I'd like to ask you to speak to is we did receive a number of emails that asserted that doing a street means curb to curb. And we actually, in our pavement rehab program, oftentimes do dig outs. Can you describe what a dig out is? And especially as it relates to this picture here, because at the top edge of that picture, maybe the pavement is not a 22, it's higher. And so I'm not sure what how you approach the pavement rehabilitation.
Yeah, there are a couple different treatments that we can provide depending on the condition of the road. A slurry seal is if the pavement condition is pretty good, it doesn't have a lot of cracking, and we just want to seal that to make sure there's no more moisture entering the roadway. Something like this where we see raveling, that is the most serious case, and we'd have to go out there and dig out all of the bad asphalt. Sometimes you have to put down new base, and then you have to repave the area, and then kind of a major rehab, but maybe not as serious as something here would be like a mill and overlay where you grind out the top 2 inches of asphalt and then repave it back.
So there are different levels, and sometimes we have streets that don't show as, that nice new fresh black, unless we go back and do a slurry seal over the whole thing.
Correct.
Okay, and so when we analyze this, we're going to look at, those stretches of the road that, what we do citywide for pavement that looks like this.
Yeah, we've taken a look at Rodney, and we are estimating that it'd be about $240,000 to fix the pavement in the missing areas that weren't touched by the SDG&E contract.
And would it all be repaved? Is that what that cost would include?
The majority of it. Matthew, do you want to opine?
No, so we would just piggyback on what's already there, and that was performed by SDG&E. So that $250,000 cost would just be for the missing segments.
Right, the missing segment, including that whole stretch of old pavement that we see in that photo.
Correct. Yeah, most likely we would perform a full depth repair, as Jill mentioned. So we're reaching down about 7 to 9 inches below the surface, and then we would do that mill and overlay 2 inches.
Okay, and then finally, Jill, is the striping plan going back to the Traffic and Mobility Commission going to affect the timeline for getting this out for bid?
I don't think so, but I'm going to caveat that with the funding we have available is for striping. And a lot of the recommendations that came from the Bike Coalition are great recommendations, but they're capital projects. So there are certainly easy striping modifications that we can make that'll be responsive to the input we got from the Bicycle Coalition. But in some cases where the recommendation is to add the physical separation, the separated bikeways, or to remove a lane of traffic, that's not something we can do with this striping project.
And so if we send this back to the Traffic and Mobility Commission, that analysis will come back with whatever striping plan is the end result that you're recommending?
Correct.
Okay. So are we clear on the motion then, everybody? And we're ready to vote?
And then I did,
Oh, yes, Councilmember Ehlers.
Just one quick comment and thanks to Director Bankston. She sent me a PowerPoint pavement management program, which I think you put together in response to all my detailed questions. And I would say send it to the entire council because it was a lot of the questions you were asking tonight. They're great pictures and it's a very worthwhile primer on pavement. So thank you.
Yep, and we're working to get that up on the web so that the community has access to that as well.
Yes, and sometimes I ask the questions in order to let them explain it to the public.
Oh, good.
Councilmember Hensy.
Yeah, I had a question on that caveat that you made, Jill. So just in your quick review of what is being proposed by the council, do you think that there's a way to restripe this, the Manchester Street so that it will build towards a protected bike lane? Or do you think that we'll just do the best we can and then we might have to restripe the whole street if we eventually get to a protected bike lane?
I think for the most part, yeah. The challenging part is the curb-to-curb width right south of the El Camino Real intersection. We just don't have the pavement width to add the buffer there. So that's something where we'd have to do grading and concrete work and things like that that just aren't in the budget for this striping project. So that's the one spot where you have the bike lane right next to the traveled lane.
So even if we could bring down the 10.5 foot or the 11-foot travel lane to 10.5 feet, we're still constrained. Okay.
In that one area. For the other areas, we have some more opportunities and we can revisit our lane widths and where we have the right edge lines. So those would be easy ones to modify. But the more structural elements, those are challenging under this project. They don't fit under this project.
Got it. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, I think that means we're ready to vote.
motion carries unanimously. That now takes us to item 10A.
Okay, item 10A. This is one that was added to the agenda because it had been publicly noticed. And we are looking to continue this item to a date certain of February 8th, 2023. And for legal reasons, at this time, in spite of the fact that we're asking to continue it, I will open the public hearing. Are there any speakers on this item?
There are not.
Okay. We will leave this hearing open and continue the hearing to February 8th. And if the city council is in agreement, we will continue it to February 8th. I see no objection. This is continued. That meet your needs? Under the law?
Continue to February 8th, correct.
Done. Okay. So that takes us to the next item, which is item 10B, and it is the presentation of the city's annual comprehensive financial report, which is a new title with a new acronym that was ordered by the folks at GASB.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. I'm Teresa McBroom, the Director of Finance, and I'd like to introduce the other staff that is with me. That's Tom. This is Tom Gallup, the Assistant Director of Finance, and then we also have Monica Tilley, the Finance Manager that oversees financial reporting and handles all our audits. I also would like to introduce the city's audit partner, This is Shannon Ayala, and she's from Davis Farr CPAs. She will be making this presentation for the annual comprehensive financial report, or ACFR, like you said, for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2022, and afterwards we will all be available for questions.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. Thank you, Monica. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. We have completed the audit for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2022. The audit reports issued were the ACFR, as mentioned before, the San Dieguito Water financial statements, and the communication to those in governance. Currently in progress is the single audit of federal awards. We were engaged, the first page of the financial section of the ACFR is the audit opinion. We issued an unmodified audit opinion dated December 22nd, 2022. The audit opinion states that the financial statements and footnotes are presented fairly in all material respects and in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. The unmodified opinion is the highest level of opinion that can be received on the financial statements. And this year, our report also includes an emphasis of matter related to the implementation of GASB 87 as it relates to leases. Our opinion is not modified with respect to this matter. The MD and the management's discussion and analysis, also known as the MD&A, is presented at the front of the ACFR, and it contains a summary of financial statements as well as management's analysis of all of those items. Here is the statement of net position, and it shows the consolidated governmental activities such as the general fund and the consolidated business type activities such as the water district. On a combined basis, the total assets increased approximately $7.4 million due to an increase in capital assets, as well as the lease receivable recorded as a result of the implementation of GASB 87. The total liabilities, you'll notice, decreased by almost $41 million. This is primarily due to a decrease in the net pension liability of $29 million, as well as a decrease in unearned revenues of $4.4 million. This was a result of recognizing revenue that was received in the prior year, but had not yet been spent related to the ARPA funding. The next table is the statement of activities. This shows the general revenues and program revenues of the governmental and business type activities. Major increase of $7.8 million for general revenues. Was primarily due to a $3 million increase in property taxes as a result of all of the increase in property values, as well as a $3.4 million increase in other taxes, which is primarily due to the transient occupancy tax from the new hotel, as well as the short-term vacation rentals as COVID restrictions were lifted. Total expenses remained relatively consistent over 2021 to 2022, and in total, the city's financial position improved by $18.7 million due to the increase in governmental activities. The general fund, the major fund of the city, the general revenues of $92.2 million exceeded the budget of $89.9 million. The general fund expenditures were under the council's approved budget of $71.9 million. Those came in at $70.9 million. All of the general fund departments operated within the budget except for public safety. There was a budget variance of $3.9 million due to the city council's approval to use $8 million of ARPA funds for the public safety contract. This was approved late in April of 2022, and as such, only $4 million of ARPA was used, and the rest was paid by the general fund budget. The general fund revenues exceeded expenditures by $21.3 million, and after transfers to all other funds, the general fund reported an increase of $2.1 million in fund balance. As I mentioned, the implementation of GASB 87 had an effect on the balance sheet or the statement of net position of the city. This resulted in about $4.8 million of lease receivables recorded, and that's offset by $4.7 million of deferred inflows. This is primarily due to leases that the city has with cell tower companies for the lease of land. As part of our audit procedures, we evaluated the internal controls for the purposes of assessing audit risk and designing our procedures. We do not issue an opinion on internal controls, but we would report any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, of which there were none. And then audit results on compliance. So the city's audit is performed in accordance with government auditing standards. So these standards require that we test for compliance with laws and regulations that we believe are direct and material to the financial statements. And we noted no instances of non-compliance with any laws and regulations, and there were no purchasing compliance issues identified, investment compliance issues, or debt compliance issues identified. With that, we can answer any questions about the audit process.
Okay, thank you. And congratulations to staff. Great work. Deputy Mayor Lyons.
Thank you, Mayor Kranz. I imagine we may have some public speakers. I'm not sure, but I did want to jump in and just right off out the gate, just say congratulations to our financial team, Director of Finance Mick Broom, Tom Gallup, Monica Tali, and also our consultant Shannon Ayala. A lot of people don't really get into the details of budget and finance, but it's really a sign of a healthy city. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to call that out, that your good work is being acknowledged, and congratulations for such a good opinion, unmodified opinion, and no issues identified. Kind of translating what you just presented into kind of more summary terms. But we work really hard to really do a good job here, and having good financial health results in things like our AAA bond rating. And this is so important to us and so important as we move forward. I know our next item is our infrastructure task force, but it's so important to how we're able to fund things in the future. So I just wanted to point out that I think the future is looking good, and I'm happy to have a documented and to continue to have documented success at how we manage ourselves financially, that we can report so positively to the public about our financial status. Thank you.
Councilmember Ehlers.
Yeah, I also would like to thank you. Since, as you know, I've got 2 CPAs in my family, and this is like dinner conversation for us around our family, so sad state of affairs. But yeah, so obviously the positive statement is wonderful, wonderful. Just one thing, could you comment on, I believe the net position, there was a substantial increase this year, primarily due, was it the pension position? And the investment environment changed kind of radically since the close of the fiscal year. What does next year look like? I would assume, I suspect there may be a reversal of that occurring. So we shouldn't get too giddy with the positive move in the net position this year, because there may be an equally reversing one. But I'd love to hear your comments.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you for your question. The CalPERS reports a year behind. Their system is a year behind. And so what we're reporting here is for a measurement date of June 30, 2021. And that's when the market was more favorable. CalPERS earned an interest rate of 21% at that time. And so you see that in our funded ratio of our pension. And for June 30, 2022, it was a decline of 6%. So it is good news. It was good news for everybody, but we will all get that same decline next year. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. And seeing no other questions, we will consider this presentation and the ACFR received. Thank you.
And then there's also the resolution amending the fiscal year budget to authorize additional discretionary payment to CalPERS. As part of
Okay.
that item.
So we will need a motion for that. I
So
didn't
moved.
see- Second.
You just moved that? Oh, Allison, okay, great, thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you. With that, we will move on to item 10C, the Infrastructure Task Force Committee appointments. And I don't know if there doesn't appear to be any staff. I would say that the reality here is that this is an embarrassment of riches, as they say. We have 23 applicants for 7 positions. And all of them were qualified, in my opinion. It was a matter of identifying those who are most qualified, and that hasn't been easy. One of the things that I decided to do with this, since a goal of the committee is to have somebody from every district, that I would ask each council member to make a nomination of a committee member from their district to begin with. So I don't know, we could go from far end to here.
I will take it for District 1. After looking at all of the applicants for District 1 and also the letters of support.
Can I interrupt you just for a second?
Of course.
Do we have public speakers? Yes.
Oh,
Yes, we
then,
do. We have several, and then we do have a couple applicants that are here, and they're just wanting to let you know that they're here, and they're available if you have questions. So the first 3 speakers, Josh Sebastian, Dolores Lodel, and Aaron Hebshe.
All right, Council and Mayor, good to see you guys tonight. My name is Josh Sebastian. I live in Leucadia. I applied to the task force hoping to make a positive impact on the community. In large, I believe that the direction under Blake Spear and Kranz has been positive and merely hope to facilitate those ends. Personally, I've become more involved locally as my children have begun biking to school, one to Deguino and one to Eki. That sort of spurred me on for some of the things that goes on in our community. Another important note about me is that I'm a renter. I am not a disgruntled renter, just a by-the-numbers renter. Hopefully that means something to some of you. From what I understand, about 40% of your constituents are renters and growing with the developments. Yet there were only about 20% of the applications were renters. You may have your own reasons for why that may be. I certainly had mine. I looked at the median age in Encinitas. The median age is about 42. I'm about my age. I consider myself kind of an old man, but realize that half of our community is younger than me. When some of these folks tell you that they have decades and decades and decades and decades of experience, I want you to ask yourself, is that a bug or a feature as you move forward looking for pragmatic solutions in our community? I think that's a key thing here, pragmatic. It's great to come up with flying spaceships and whatnot, but we're a town of 60,000 people, and we actually have to move forward with pragmatic choices that will shape the future for all our residents. My hope is simply that you will take these backgrounds into consideration. If I can be helpful, then by all means. If not, that's okay too. Aaron Hebsche, I think, is a great choice. I've also heard good things about James. I think it's Wang. And I'm sure all of you recognize some names on your lists as well. So thank you for your time.
Josh, if you're an old man in this, what does that make me?
Your words, not mine.
Yep.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members, and welcome to our newest council member, Allison Blackwell. I'm Dolores Lodell, and I'm in District 1 on Hillcrest Drive, and I'm here to express my support for Diana Nunez to serve the City of Encinitas Infrastructure Task Force Committee, ITF, either for District 1 or as an at-large member. Diana is one of the co-founders of Now Leucadia Group and has been very active in advocacy in the city for years. I know her to be very intelligent, respectful, thoughtful, I should have gotten my glasses, kind, and articulate individual. She's worked with the city on many issues over the years. She has a good background and understanding of the infrastructure needs, and she also understands budgetary constraints. Her experience, dedication, and advocacy for the citizens of Encinitas makes her the perfect fit for this task force. Thank you.
Next speaker is Aaron Hebsche, followed by Chris Ryan, and then June Hansberger.
Hi, folks. Good to see you all. Welcome, new council member Blackwell. It's good to see you. Just really quickly, I did want to say I did apply for the infrastructure task force, and I agree. Looking at those resumes, we do have an abundance of riches. I was super excited to be one of those potential members, but after seeing everybody else, like, well, even if I am not selected, I know that it's going to be in good hands. Of course, you know, my goal in being part of the task force was not to get behind a closed door. It was to be there at a window to help the community see what's going on and to make recommendations and to participate in the democratic process. And honestly, that's what I was most excited about, is being able to be part of our community and be part of something bigger in that way. So if I'm selected, that would be wonderful. I'd be honored. But like Josh said, there's some other great folks, Josh included. I'll be eagerly awaiting your selection today.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Just wanted to be here to voice my support for Diana Nunez for the task force. The work that she has done for the community of Leucadia has been so impressive, and I really feel like Diana and her group have really been the catalyst for all of the movement and improvement for Northwest Leucadia, and I'm hoping that you select her. Thank you.
Next, let's see, that's June. After June Hansberger is Christine Schindler, Pam Rodella, and then Scott Maloney is here. He's an applicant, and he's available if you have questions.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm here tonight to express my support for Diana Nunez's appointment for Leucadia, or as the at-large representative on this infrastructure task force. I'm always impressed with Diana. She does so much research on any topic that we're ever discussing, and her knowledge is so impressive, and I think would be very helpful to this new task force. I have had the opportunity to work with Diana for the last 5 years as she has advocated for at-grade pedestrian rail crossings and safe mobility projects in Leucadia. She has brought community members together through her work as a founding member of the Now Leucadia Group. Diana works hard to stay well-informed and is dedicated to keeping the public up to date about topics affecting Leucadia. She cares about the citizens of all of Encinitas and has actively participated in the CIP process for several years. Diana understands the importance of developing criteria to help guide the council and the city in their identification and prioritization of infrastructure projects. And I really believe that Diana would be quite an asset to this infrastructure task force, And I urge you to please appoint her to represent the citizens, not only of Leucadia, but I think she'd do a great job for all of Encinitas. Her knowledge on rail and all things affecting pedestrian crossings would really, I think, benefit this entire task force. So thank you for listening this evening.
All right, third time's the term. Christine Schindler, East Encinitas. So I don't know how this came to be, but I just wanted to thank you for the creation of this particular task force. I look forward to what they're able to do. I hope that they will think a lot about our mobility options, complete streets, and active transportation, and how we can continue to improve our community when it comes to infrastructure. And then as far as the objectives, the scopes of the task force, I hope they always think of non-infrastructure as well, because with every infrastructure project, it's important to have non-infrastructure, meaning education, encouragement, public awareness, and safety campaigns. So I just want to thank you for your efforts. You have a hard choice to make. I looked through all the information for the 24, 23 candidates, and it looks like we have a lot of good options, and so thank you for your efforts.
Hello, Council. Welcome to all the new members. It's so great to see everybody. I'm Pam Rodella. I live in District 4, and I had put in an application to form part of the infrastructure task force, and I would be so honored to serve on this and continue representing the members of Village Park and other folks in District 4 who voted for me in my recent bid for the seat. So I hope that I get the chance to work with you all, and I'm really looking forward to continuing the work of representing my district and my neighbors, and thinking about the city as a whole as far as infrastructure goes. And I'm also echoing what Christine was saying, that infrastructure is a lot more than just the streets and the roads and the bridges, that we need to think about our human infrastructure as well. And, pardon me, I will be a devoted member of the task force should I be selected. Thank you.
And that does conclude speakers. Are there any other applicants that wanted to speak before you turn it back over to the council? Okay, that concludes speakers.
Okay, thank you all. So picking back up, nominees from each district. Allison?
Yeah, I'll say a few comments. I want to thank all the applicants. You know, we've already talked about it. It's a very rich pool of candidates. And I'd like to thank the public who wrote in support of different candidates, as well as came here to talk tonight. It does excite me that we had a lot, and we actually had 9 from District 1, I think, out of the 23, and maybe that emphasizes for me the needs that are coming out of District 1. So with that, I considered all the applications, I read through them all, and I looked at all the letters of support and listened very carefully to the comments tonight. I would like to recommend Diana Nunez as the District 1 representative. I've really been impressed with, again, her dedication to issues like this through now Leucadia, her perseverance, and her knowledge. And so I think she'd be a great member for this task force.
Thank you. Bruce?
Yeah, I too would like to echo it, and that it was everybody very impressive, so very, very good. In District 4, there were 4. One I thought stood out above the others for appropriate background with as a Sandag planner in infrastructure, and it just kind of screamed at me, and that would be Linda Culp. So.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Hensy?
Yes, rate applications for District 2 as well. I just want to note that we do have vacancies on the Mobility Commission. So for those who are not appointed tonight to the Infrastructure Task Force, I think you would be doing similar work on the Mobility Commission. And it looks like we have openings for Leucadia, New Encinitas, and Old Encinitas. But the person who I would like to select to represent District 2 as my choice is Kendra Rowley. Kendra is somebody who grew up here in Encinitas, moved back as an adult. She has her degree in civil engineering, and she has a professional engineering license. She is a new mom. She rides her daughter around on a bike. She is a renter, which I think was important for us to have that representation on the committee. And her specialties include citywide pedestrian planning, multimodal corridor studies, safety studies, complete streets. So she speaks the language in a very sophisticated way, and I am grateful for her willingness to volunteer.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Lyons.
Yes, thank you. And Mayor Kranz, I wish, well, I will do exactly as you have requested by suggesting someone to fill the position for the D3 seat, but I hope that you might provide me with the opportunity to also say a few words about some of the other candidates. I would say mostly because I've invested a lot in this infrastructure task force, honing the language with our former council member and Deputy Mayor Mosca, and also with our city manager in Tell. And given a lot of thought over the last year when we've been working on this to come up with the right way forward and the right number of people and the right kinds of people to be on this committee. So getting to it, I will say, as far as my D3 recommendation, I would like that to be Nicole Moreland. She is, as you may have already noticed from her resume, she's the Director of Finance for the Department of Transportation in Seattle. How she's living in Cardiff, I actually know her and have spoken with her, so I kind of know that backstory, but it sounds a little unusual. But she would fit the role for the technical expert in finance as well as the D3 representative. I've actually reached out to her for her impression on funding of infrastructure and her insights into how a city of our size and our location and our capabilities and our resources could move forward to really craft a really solid priorities and also options for connecting our needs with financial tools, financing external funding. And I think she will be a real asset to this infrastructure task force. I do want to call out a few other folks just for at-large consideration, and one would be Patricia Troth. She is a landscape architect, and she really is broader than just infrastructure, but she looks at infrastructure from the lens of healthy communities, creating healthy communities, and she works in transportation planning. And she's also one of our mobility and traffic safety commissioners, and I was happy to see that she was interested in helping serve. In addition, I was...
Okay, well, why don't I make my recommendations?
Oh, okay.
Okay? I have your recommendation.
I will follow your lead.
And I am pleased that of the list of 7 that I made, that the 4 selections that you made are on that list. And so I would propose that we round out this list with Navardo Valenzuela, Dick Stern, and Scott Maloney. And I think the most important things that I see in those 3 choices, I think it's very important that this conversation about infrastructure include issues related to water, specifically stormwater, and Scott Maloney brings a tremendous background in that. Dick Stern, as the president of the Encinitas Ranch Homeowners Association and living in the very challenged area of Quail Gardens Drive, I think has a lot to contribute. And Navardo also very active in our community, and would bring a transit perspective that I think is very important to have on this committee. And all of the things that you said about the second possible appointee and anybody else that you would mention is important. I would add that, we've been doing infrastructure for the 10 years plus that I've served on this council, and this is a critical issue, but the work that this task force will do is going to very much supplement the long list of needs that we have in our community for capital improvement projects to address infrastructure issues. So I look forward to the work that they will do. But in the end, the proverbial buck stops here, and we're going to be the 5 that will end up having to make decisions about how we proceed with the work product of this task force. So with that, I would invite any other comments or questions or concerns or considerations. Councilmember Ehlers.
Boy, Tony, I think you were reading off my list. Yeah, so I kind of sorted more because I knew it would be a general thing, and the people you chose were all candidates I would have considered as my second tier right away. So I support where we are right now.
Okay. Councilmember Hensy.
Yeah, so looking back to the criteria that was outlined, I don't think it's like a hard and fast rule that we have to have people that represent every one of these considerations that the infrastructure, I guess, creation committee devised. But in that slate of folks that we have, do we have somebody from a city business group? Is that Dick Stern is he a member of IRGA or?
Well, he's IRGA, yes.
Okay, so that's going to count for it. Okay, I would like to thank Brittany Corrales, who put forward a application, and she would have represented Leucadia 101 while also being a member of the business group. But my hope is that this infrastructure task force operates a lot like the Coastal Mobility Livability Working Group did, in which members of the public were invited to come in and provide public comment at both the beginning and the end of each of those meetings. And so everybody who came tonight, obviously you're stakeholders. I do hope that you attend those meetings and stay up to date. I had a question for, I guess it would be you, Pam. How do we expect getting updates from the infrastructure task force? And do we expect that they will be in communication with the mobility committee? And I see a lot of overlap between those two groups.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor and Council Member Hensy. So what we anticipate is that we will be bringing back to Council some informational reports as this group continues to meet. Similar to the Equity and Inclusion Committee, a big part of the beginning will be a lot of presentations, including that interaction with other committee and commissions in terms of learning about how infrastructure is funded, where our shortfalls and gaps are, et cetera. And then we haven't fully fleshed it out, but it was the intention of the subcommittee at some point during the mid part of their studies to either do a joint meeting or have a presentation by the elected chair from amongst themselves of the committee. Another thing, just since I have the floor, we did not identify a day or time for the committee. I was just asking the city engineer, who will be the staff to the committee. All of the folks that are selected will be contacted to try to get a best sense of what may work. So I don't know if it's the first Wednesday of the month or the first Tuesday or what have you. And there may be some months that there's more than one meeting if needed. It's a lot of information to gather and learn about for the next 12 months. So,
Deputy Mayor Lyons.
Yes, thank you. I do want to reinforce to let people know that there are openings on our commissions, And I know Councilmember Hinsey's already said that, but we've got so many wonderful people with great enthusiasm and great resumes, and I would love to see you involved in helping us at the city. We need all this good help. So the more opportunities we can continue to make open for you to step up and give us your common sense and your expertise, I would really encourage you. So I'm happy that we've got a proposal for 7 people moving forward. I do want to encourage those who aren't selected to continue to look for opportunities to be involved. I will go ahead and put this motion forward if that's the mayor's pleasure.
Yes, so it's Scott Maloney, Diana Monsi Nunez, Richard Stern, Kendra Rowley, Navarro Valenzuela, Nicole Moreland, and Linda Culp. And Deputy Mayor Lyons made the motion for that, correct?
Yes.
And Councilmember Ehlers is a second. And regarding the commissions, when is the deadline for submitting applications?
I was going to mention that later. The deadline is actually tomorrow at 5 o'clock.
Okay, so if you're interested, that would be the need to get an application in pretty quickly.
And then I'll just reiterate before we vote, just as Councilmember Hinsey mentioned, these are all Brown Act. This is a Brown Act committee. All the commissions are Brown Act commissions, which means that they are all open to the public. There's public comment that's available, so it's all open to the public, so we encourage you to attend.
Tony, can I?
Yes,
Maybe it's not
Councilmember
coming up.
Ehlers, I was just waiting.
I just wanted to reiterate that even though you didn't get chosen, you can still attend the meetings. They're public meetings. That's what I did on the native plant. I went as a member of the public. And then the Encinitas El Camino Real Task Force, I went to every one of the meetings as a member of the public and then ended up here. So, just because you're not part of the 7 doesn't mean you can't be at every meeting and make comments at public comments. So.
Start voting. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay. Moving on to the next item, which is informational items, there are none. Councilmember initiated items, there are none. And then that takes us to city council member reports pursuant to AB 1234. And I would venture to guess that Allison doesn't have any of those reports. Bruce?
None.
Yes, I have some updates. So on the NCTD rail front, I am happy to announce that the rail will be reopened February 4th on a limited schedule for passengers between San Clemente, where it's been shut down, and Oceanside. So that's exciting. And then from the San Diego Community Power role that I serve as a board member, we happily adopted our new rates for this coming year on our last meeting, and that is 3% lower than SDG&E's rates. So that was a big, exciting piece of news for us. And as we know, Encinitas was automatically opt-in at Power 100. So that means that everybody who stayed opt-in has all renewable sources of energy in their home. So it's a good trajectory that we're on so far.
And if people opted down, is it the same 3% less than SDG&E for the mix?
That's a good question. I can't remember the answer to that, but I'll find out.
We had everybody as opted in, people that didn't want to do the higher rate, all green, all renewable, could lower to the next lower tier, and then there were the others who might have opted out and are now paying 3% more to SDG.
Oh, that's correct. Yeah, the very lowest is now paying a higher rate.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And I saw an email about your NCTD.
REC committee.
Yeah.
Let me pull up the date. Come back.
Okay. Joy.
Nothing to report.
Okay, and since I have nothing to report, Kelly, we're right back to you. It is, what is it called? The quality of life something or other, or community something or other.
Okay, so the RESI Committee, which is the Rail Safety and Community Enhancement Committee that's designed to help us move towards our goals as a quiet zone and increasing our improvements along the rail right-of-way, will be meeting on February 7th at 11 a.m. And you can watch that meeting on YouTube, which is on the NCTD YouTube page, or you are welcome to attend in person at the NCTD headquarters in Oceanside.
And this is a group that is not only dedicated to these improvements through our city, but throughout the whole NCTD area, correct? So
That is correct. Yeah, they're mostly focused along the rail lines of NCTD Sprinter and the coaster lines.
okay, thank you. City manager reports.
Yes, just a couple of exciting updates. 5 p.m. today, the Encinitas Academy application opened online. If you're interested in being our first class of the Encinitas Academy, you can go to encinitasca.gov/Encinitas Academy. So that's our inaugural class. And just a couple of really quick updates. Mayor, you talked a little bit about the Stone Steps closure, and I just wanted to let the council and the public know that a structural engineer has been hired to provide the updated technical specifications that will accompany the original as-built permitted structure. And so the contractor noted logistical issues that will increase a little bit of their complexity to get to the beach access for repairs. So these are the things that you'll notice. The structural beams for stair support will need to be replaced, and that supports the stairway down to the next landing. Those stairs will need to be supported from below with a large forklift or other machine while the beam is being replaced. I know, Mayor, you'll be down there taking photos because this is your big, large equipment will be down there. The low tide, due to the need to support the stairs from below, work can only occur during low tide. So you'll notice that there might be some days that they're not out there working. And the materials, the bolts and brackets that secure the structural beams need to be custom ordered to ensure that they meet the technical specifications, et cetera, et cetera. So the work is anticipated to be completed within the next 2 weeks, but there could be weather delays and things, so we ask that the public be patient. And then the one that I know you've been waiting for, Cardiff Sports Park backstops. Yay, if you haven't been out there, the backstops, you'll see them, they're being put in right now. The backstops for fields 3 and 4 were shipped and delivered with the contractor last week. The installation of the field 4 is nearing completion, and the installation of the field 3 will begin this week. We're hoping that the whole work will be done late next week. Again, that's pending inspections by the city building official and any rain delays. So that's it for me tonight. Thank you.
Okay, and anybody who's taken a look at the beach and the shoreline has seen the devastation that these storms have wrought on our shoreline. Sand is gone. I'm assuming that we are monitoring all beach accesses and other areas, and that having watched the Blacks Beach video of the bluff collapsing, that we are making sure people, we would say tonight to everyone who might be watching that you should be extremely careful with regard to the bluffs. So.
That is correct, Mr. Mayor, and in fact, our lifeguards are out there multiple times during the day, and you will occasionally see on our website, as well as notifications, that sometimes we do close some of those access points and beaches. I think the Fire and Marine Safety Chief had to do that last week a couple of times, so we just ask again for the patience of the public. We're doing that for your safety.
Thank you. And city manager, or excuse me, city attorney reports.
No report tonight, Mr. Mayor.
No report. City clerk reports.
No report, other than to reiterate that the applications are due by 5 o'clock tomorrow for all the annual commission vacancies.
Okay, and with that, I would like to adjourn this meeting in honor of the memories of those who passed in Monterey Park and Oakland and Half Moon Bay.